we've got a brain designed to gather nuts, and we're being bombarded with just information 24/7. We've all got this comparison tool in our pocket that we can just bring out and see everyone else's highlight reels and think, oh, they're nailing it.
You remove the things that could make you long-term content for a blast of dopamine continuously, over and over.
There will be happiness, and then there's also going to be sadness. No one's motivated all the time. No one wants to do these things that are beneficial for you all the time.
We as men are experiencing an increasingly more and more confusing journey. How do you think masculinity is doing in 2024?
I think it's confused. I think masculinity is confused. It's not doing too well.
What's the number one thing holding you back from finding happiness and contentment in this life? Odds are good, it's you. But this is not because there's something wrong with you. The problem is that you have limiting beliefs that are stopping you from finding what is going to bring meaning to your life. You've heard me talk about this quite a bit with attachment theory, your limiting beliefs that come from childhood, right? There's limiting beliefs that hold you back in every area of your life, even if you're securely attached. Today we brought on Andrew Shaw, a man known for giving short, succinct advice exactly drawn from his life experience to show you exactly where you need to go next to cut through those limiting beliefs. We're going to dissect some of the biggest challenges that people experience today and why they aren't having the conversations they need to have and why they are truly unhappy. Andrey, this was a great conversation. I can't wait to get into it.
Andrew? Well, this is going to be a fun, exciting conversation. So one thing I'm really curious about is that we as men are experiencing an increasingly more and more confusing journey. It seems like the more you try to uncover and the more you move forward in life using old models, the less it serves you. And there's a lot of changes that have been happening, in families and society in general, that make it very difficult for men to orient themselves in a way that is going to lead them to ultimately happiness, whatever it means for them. So in today's conversation, I'd love to kind of touch on that whole journey from inception as an adult towards parenthood, towards maybe the older stages of your life, because you've had quite a lot of success, as I understand, across the board. Maybe if you can share a little bit of a story with us about you, and then also what do you think the key challenges for men are in this day and age, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, so challenges. I think they're one and the same, so I can answer that with one response, and that was, as I mentioned to you guys before, I think societal pressure. I think there's a point when you become, for me, this is the example I'm using. When you become a parent and you realize maybe the parenting model to you isn't best practice, and then you have to address those things. That's very confronting when you've all of a sudden become a parent, a father, and that brings its own challenges. And like I said, for me it was a case of, I've got to really manage myself here and my emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. So in order to help my son when he's going through his, let's say, emotional challenges. So that was the big one for me. When you're a dad, I think I started off feeling like a caregiver or a provider, and it was only really when I started to work on myself in terms of self-improvement, emotional regulation, increased psychological flexibility. That's when I could be a dad. That when my son was having those let's say emotional issues, and I could be there for him. I wasn't losing my cool and calm temper, and I would actually be able to help him with that. So for me, that's when I felt like a dad. And I think it's not an easy one, because I think the the message on we've all got this, comparison tool in our pocket that we can just bring out and see everyone else's highlight reels and think, oh, they're nailing it. What's going on here? So I think that's problematic. I think there's
it's a very limiting belief that we have to compete with other people, right?
Yeah, I don't think that serves anyone. I think it's more of an external thing. People go for those goals, there's temporary things or the competition against someone else. Right? If you're doing that, you're always going to need an external thing, like a validation, something. But if you were to sort of reframe that and look at your own, let's say, values, right? Just look at what's important to you, and then you can work from that. So there's not like a you could have goals, I suppose, but if you're looking at the values that are important to you, I want to be a good parent, I want to show up this way. I think that lends itself to you needing a much more rich and fulfilling life when you've got those things in place. You're not trying to attain something with values. You never you never get there, so to speak. You orient your path, and it's much more enjoyable that way, as opposed to, I think a lot of it is earn. Going back to the social media highlight stuff, is it's people in yachts and earn 7 figures and all of these, and I think a lot of guys struggle because they're attaining those things, or they get to a certain level, pull out that comparison tool and see someone with a bigger yacht, more money, and then they chase that, and I think it leads to like a sense of disappointment. They're climbing the wrong mountain, so to speak, and it's only when they reach the summit do they realize, oh, this is the wrong mountain. This is all I've found up here is a sense of disappointment and hollowness now that from achieving this thing, which wasn't really my goal. It was something impressed upon me. It was something I was told to.
Well, it's very true that what we're trying to be is we're trying to be picture perfect. There's somewhere in our recent history that the authenticity of the human experience, which was portrayed in Shakespearean plays perfectly, right? Shakespearean plays aren't happy. That's one thing I was very surprised by. It's really, as far as just creations go, they're mostly sad and rather tragic, but yet nonetheless they're so popular because they allow us to have this full human experience, and they create the lows so that we can feel the highs and kind of have that full cycle. Now, that is no longer the, let's just say, popular way of living your life. You're actually supposed to pretend you're perfect. You're supposed to pretend these negative emotions don't exist. Consequently, what you're doing is you're actually limiting your ability to feel positivity, and I think it actually gives birth to a tremendous amount of insecurity. So let's just talk about for a second insecurity in men and women. Where do you think that comes from? And is it just social media, or is there more sources of it?
Judgment of others. Fear of judgment of others. That's where it comes from.
Yeah. Adam, we talk about insecurity a lot. What are your thoughts? Where does it come from? What is it?
Insecurity. So to my experience, first as a marriage family therapist, now as the attachment specialist doing attachment theory work and things like that, what I've often found is that our family helps us grow, and they either help us continuously face new beliefs, challenge beliefs, grow into our beliefs, find what our beliefs are and express them, and the world is an opportunity, or our family grows us into a fearful state. Either we have to avoid others and control every interaction, or we have to please others because we ourselves are somehow unacceptable. And so we limit our beliefs, and we never ever question any beliefs ever again, because now our beliefs are the only thing keeping us safe. This is what we seem to be experiencing, and here in America at least, the research says it's about 50% or even up to 65% now of young people are having these massively limited fear-based beliefs. So everything you've shared is exactly spot on. I wrote my book, Slaying Your Fear, about this because I've seen that the rates of this are increasing. And one of the pieces in this book that I've helped people do, one of the initial steps that I think, Andrew, really resonates with your work, is discovering what your values even are, really finding them and seeking them rather than a fear-based system. Exactly what you said. I have to please others. I must look this way or I will be in danger or others shall reject me. Instead, saying these are my values and some will reject my values, but others will love my values and I am not going to appease people who don't like those values. That's been my thought so far. Andrew, has that resonated maybe with you?
So for limiting beliefs, I think a lot of people struggle with that inner critic. I think a lot of people have that, and for me, that comes down to environment where there's it could be through formative years or later on in life, wherever. But if you're in an environment where you've got overcritical parents, where you've got maladaptive sibling rivalry, where you've got toxic relationships, romantic or friends, or societal, or let's say work colleagues, highly judgmental, that all contributes to that inner critic. And that just sort of, the more time and you expose yourself to those things, that the more that inner critic grows. And I think it's just, it's addressing that. It can be quite crippling for most people, having that, and that inner critic just holds them back a lot. There's this reverberation of the stuff that they're telling themselves. There's to most people, I think it's an imperceptible thought processing and command that they're just running these thoughts that they can't do these things, and they won't be able to do that, or this, and that all stems from that. I think it's just all stems from that inner critic, and it's a little bit of work to unpick that. Just first being aware of it, just addressing that, and not beating yourself up about it, and not chastising or berating yourself for making a mistake. And I think that's another way. So people are so scared of making a mistake. If your parents never, let's say, if you never saw your parents make a mistake, and they never spoke to you about them, of course you're going to be adverse to trying things and taking risk, because you don't want to make that mistake yourself. You're thinking, oh, okay, these my parents, these guys are crushing it. There's something, what's wrong with me? I'm making all these mistakes, which are inevitable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my mouth shut, and I'm going to cover this up, this mistake. I am not going to tell anyone. So this creates this cover-up culture. And I think when people don't show that, these mistakes, or don't talk about them, it just leads to this pretense, this facade that there's a perfection element.
And that's actually kind of interesting too, because kind of bringing it back to this conversation, we have these limiting beliefs that we develop as children. Often that comes from the rejection our parents give us. To us, it's such a minor little thing. Like, to us, we are so eager to jump in and criticize kids for not being on an adult level, quite the similar way that we criticize ourselves for being not adult enough. But we have to remember that the context of these experiences is so different for them, and what may be, tiny for us means the world to them, because that's the maximum of their experience to this time. So my question to you, Andrew, is how do you start fighting these limiting beliefs? That inner critic, and also what's even worse, especially as a parent, that outer critic.
There's got to be an element where you become aware. Like, the first step is, for me, is always this awareness of these thoughts and emotions, what's going on. And I think most people aren't aware. I think there's so much noise and distraction. We've got a brain designed to gather nuts, and we're being bombarded with just information 24/7. There is no respite. So I cultivated a routine in which I work with my clients, like all the guys that I work with, help them construct something to give them, let's say, just a bit of time for, call it active meditation, mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. Just some time in silence where you can have this sensory experience. Thoughts will come in. It just makes us more aware of thoughts. So we're looking at them, we're picking up, we're able to catch them. And I think that's, for me, over the years, been invaluable, because I will catch myself. I used to catch myself with these thoughts. You know, it was like, no one wants to work with you, or you're a bad parent. And it was just, for me, it was just being able to dial in and just catch them, just awareness that they were going on. You know, for a lot of people, they're imperceptible, and they're just running there, but they're not really picking up on them. They're, you know, people aren't cognizant that they're going on. So I think for me, that's the first step, just to be aware and just pick up. I would write them down, journal in the evening, and I'd pick up on them, or at the time. I used to write about them in my stories when I would get up out of bed, like, you know, a while back, and it would be all those thoughts coming through. Oh, it's too cold, it's too wet, go tomorrow. And it was just that awareness of thought, I think, is the first step, just having that awareness. And then that lends itself to you being able to pick up on them when they come through. So let's say there's a particular event, or something's coming up, there's something happening in your day, a prompt, a trigger to elicit these thoughts. And I was very much, I've just been very, from what I practice, is picking up on those thoughts has just become easier and easier. I'm able to diffuse from them easier and easier, but also just noticing them, just challenging them. I'm not trying to say, you know, there's no judgment or anything around them. I'm just noticing, and then my mind does its own thing. It's like, oh, I'm noticing that. Maybe I can notice that. Sometimes, you know, if it's a particularly common one that's going over and over, I will label it. I will pull it up and say, oh, okay, here's the bad dad story, just to give it a name.
Agreed. If you live your life as a series of dominoes that you have to stack up carefully and arrange before you can knock over one, and every domino has to be perfectly in sequence before you can begin, then you'll simply never begin. If you live your life as a series of decisions you will make in each moment according to a core system of values, it's a very different approach. You can simply move forward and continue growing and continue advancing and continue refining as you go. It's a very different view.
Yeah. What has really helped me kind of snap out of that, honestly, was when I started my own business. And before, I was in consulting for a long time. And consulting is interesting because you're working with huge systems, huge responsibilities, huge budgets, but you actually have too much time to think about things. You have too much time to implement. And then I hit the ground running with building a business, and I was working with Jordan Peterson at the time, and we were building his business together. And all of a sudden, my decision horizon was like days, like a day, or maybe like an afternoon. Like, we have to decide this now, because if I wait 2 weeks, the context is already gone. You know, the playing field has changed. Everything I've thought about for the last 2 weeks is now void. And it took me a bit of time, but as soon as I snapped into the reality of understanding that we're actually running on a treadmill and our decisions are being made on a treadmill, and if you stand still in it for too long, you're going to go flying off the edge. You have to go at the pace of life that you're picking, and then you'll stay on top of it. And you can train yourself to go faster and farther and better, but it takes a little bit of time. What do you think about that analogy, Andrew? Does that kind of resonate? Am I off?
Yeah, no, I like that. I think for me, you've got to make it comes down to making a decision. You know, if you're procrastinating on something, you know, you're going over things, and you're just going over the data again and again. It doesn't really change. It's just like you need to make a decision, and I think there's too much worry and concern about the outcome, which is outside of your. And here's the thing that we've got to remember: is this control fallacies. We've got to remember the outcome is outside of our control. We could still make the best decision possible, and still not work out. I don't know if either of you guys play poker. It's like going all in with aces, and against someone with I don't know what they're doing, kings. Like they're probably the only other hand that you go all in with deep stacked. But if you go all in with aces, and they go on with kings, and they spike a king, and you lose, you've still made the right decision. You'd run that scenario over every time. You would go with that decision, make that right decision, because it's the right decision, but it hasn't worked out. And people are so concerned with the outcome. I'm like, be more concerned with making the right decision, and then executing, making that decision, and just go, okay, I have all this information that I need. Couldn't possibly hope for any more. I'm going to make the best decision at this point. Made a decision. That's it. And usually it's a large percentage of the time it's reversible. It's not like, oh, it's set in stone and we can't go back in that. But like you were saying, you wait too long, and then usually the opportunity's gone, or this has passed, and you've just let that worry about the outcome override your decision and not making a decision.
So Adam, how do you help your clients stop overthinking on the day-to-day?
Actually, it's frequent check-ins. So a lot of people come to me for my just coaching sessions, but what many people find value in is the twice weekly check-ins of my mentorship community, the Attachment Circle. We jump into calls every couple of days, and people share their limiting beliefs. They ask things they're afraid to talk about. They say, what should I do? And not only myself, but then dozens and dozens of other members in the community can pop in and give them life advice. They can give them comfort. They can even check in and say, hey, I will follow up with you on Thursday when you have that talk. Come back and check in. Those constant check-ins drive your success.
Interesting. So is that more economical than going through like weekly coaching sessions, or how does it work?
Oh, absolutely. It's a one flat rate. You pick it up for the year, and then you have over 100 calls with me that way.
Wow. That's actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, you can find more on my website, adamlanesmith.com. It's The Attachment Circle.
Good way to stop thinking about things that don't matter. What are your thoughts, and I'm very curious about this, on only making the decisions you need to make in the moment? Because we spend a tremendous amount of time making decisions we do not have to yet make. So not, where am I going to go? What am I going to do, say, at work tomorrow? But where am I going to go in 6 months? What am I going to say to this person, 2 weeks from now that I haven't even met yet? And we spend a tremendous amount of time almost like playing this internal game, trying to make decisions, trying to pre-plan our life. And in reality, we only need to make a very small number of decisions every day. In fact, every couple of minutes. And the rest of it is just void, because it hasn't happened. Chances are it'll never happen. And even if it does happen, you'll be better equipped to make that decision knowing what you know at that time. Basically, the context of this, we spend a tremendous amount of time pondering decisions we've yet to make. Where are we going to go, next month? What are we going to do when this person, in the next week's meeting is going to say this? And we have to realize two things. First of all, we only have a limited number of decisions we need to make in a day or in a part of a day. And they're only affecting today and maybe tomorrow. Maybe they're only affecting the next half an hour. And it's best to focus on decisions you have to make in this moment and leave the decisions you need to make later on to that time. Because once you get there, you will get so much more context. You will get so much more information about what that decision is supposed to be. So you'll be much better qualified to make it correctly, and it'll be far less stressful to make. Plus, there's an additional level of complexity there, which is the relevance and significance of the decisions that you're actually busy making. So, for example, your life will not significantly change if you go to Chinese food versus Indian food for lunch today. And I can safely say that. Now, is there an element of risk? Of course. Maybe one place, is going to make you sick for salmonella and you're going to miss that exam, but the other one won't. But the risk of that, the probability is very low. And I think if you can make a framework for yourself where you can say, any decision I have to make, I have to assess for significance and urgency, that'll eliminate 90% of the things you're actually trying to ruminate on throughout the day. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I can align with that. I think the majority of my day is on autopilot. I don't have to make a lot of decisions in my day because they're already made for me by way of structure and routine and systems that I've got in place. I don't have to think, oh, what am I doing today by means of exercise? I know I will get up at 6:20 and I'll be out the door at 6:30 for my run. I know I'm going to have my breakfast at this time. I know I'm going to do my first work block at this time. I know I'm going to train and have calls in the evening. I know my son's bath time is at this time. So I'm just, it's like the irrelevant decisions in my day what am I going to eat for lunch or dinner? I've removed them. My wardrobe's very limited. You'll see a lot of posts of me in a same cardigan, just because I think there's like is it the Pareto principle? Anyway, it's like we wear this 20%, like sort of 80% of the time. So I'm just like, okay, well, let's get rid of the other stuff and just focus on the essentials. What do I just less stuff and less decisions made. So yeah, I know what I'm having for dinner tomorrow night and the next night. It's all planned out. I've just removed, I suppose, inconsequential and irrelevant decisions to I suppose, reserve some capacity and cognitive function and what have you for the important decisions. Then they'll be few and far between.
But those ones are the ones that can make you happy, right? So you actually remove all of these inconsequential decisions that actually at most will bring you contentment, and at worst they'll give you a tiny little dopamine spike and that's it. And you actually create the capacity in your mind to start solving some bigger problems, like to actually achieve true happiness, to achieve purpose, to consider and contemplate value, to create things that are creative, works of art, works of science, works of the mind. And through that, it actually will lead you over time to climbing the right mountain. Because often when we're making these decisions that are immediate, we're just climbing the mountain of self-gratification or necessity or security. But you actually can climb both mountains at the same time if you can organize your life well enough to give yourself capacity for it.
And this goes back to something, Andrew, that you've said again in one of your reels, was you don't need more time, you need more systems.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you don't need more time, you need less distractions. You don't need more, what was it? I should know, I've written it. But you need better systems. And what I was pertaining to is what I've just described there. It's just to alleviate the inconsequential decisions and just sort of remove that, put those unimportant things on autopilot, and save your capacity and your mental energy for the important stuff. Just if you've got those in place, those islands of stability, I think a lot of people have these to-do lists. Oh, I need to do this, I need to do this, but I'm just like implementing in my day. I'm just like, there is very rarely a to-do list. I'm just like, I'm going through this like repetition and structure, which gives me a tremendous sense of peace, because I don't have to worry about like, have I done this? I'm doing all the essentials are getting done in my day, like on repeat, and I enjoy those things. They bring me a lot of joy. Those important things, just time with my son, bath time, swimming in the lake, every Saturday morning, going for a run every morning, 6:30, training jiu-jitsu, doing work that I find very enjoyable. It's just it's for me, it's that routine and those little things that I'm doing in my day that bring me a lot of contentment and peace.
I love that you guys have such a good relationship, that your son feels so comfortable kind of in the presence, and that's a great testament actually, that your kids can walk in, they know that you may be doing something, but then they know that they trust you, that there's going to be something that you connect with them afterwards, and it's actually really nice to see. Yeah. So
thank you. I think it's I had to work on that, Andrey. It wasn't like it started off, and this would have probably, like years and years ago, would have been very different. But I think it's getting to that place where it is, good relationship, and it does take some work, and I think that's pays off in spades, because like I was saying to you before, it's a good quality relationship. It's something that awareness that it wasn't working, and that I suppose there was pain just going, actually I don't feel like a dad here. I need to address this, and just working on that. And it's fantastic.
I'm very glad. And that's a great sign too. This is, I think, the same way that our relationship with our own mind works, is that if we trust each other and we can be in a good relationship, then we'll be much more flexible. And it doesn't matter if, something changes in the process, you just adjust, because you know that you together will figure it out, and that you're resilient to these external factors. And you probably don't have anything to fear from 95% of whatever is happening. Sure, they could be disasters, but they can be handled. But most of the things that we are worried about are ultimately inconsequential if we have those foundations of trust. So I really like this conversation, Andrew. Thank you very much. This has been a fantastic podcast, and it's just truly a testament to the fact that we do have a lot of limiting beliefs, that they're not going to go away on their own, but they're actually very resolvable, because ultimately they're just thoughts, and thoughts can be managed, they can be adjusted, they can be coerced, they can be convinced, and there's a lot of room for us to play with there.
Yeah, I think that's a good conclusion and summation. I think going back to what you were saying about those thoughts, it is just understanding that they are thoughts. They're not facts. They're just, if we can acknowledge them, if we can look at them, if we can be with them, we don't have to. I think there's a misconception that a lot of people think you have to think positive, or you have to eradicate these thoughts, or there's we shouldn't be having them. Like no one's motivated all the time. No one wants to do these things that are beneficial for you all the time. These thoughts are just there. If you can just accept them and be with them and just notice them, as opposed to trying to fight against them or get rid of them or try and replace them, which is exhausting. You can just do these meaningful things, like we were talking about, take action with those thoughts and just let them be. It's like a dull headache or a radio playing in the background, as you're doing these meaningful things in your life, and then they dissipate and they go. You just you get better and better at noticing them, and easier to diffuse from them, and just it's a thought. But yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks appreciate you.
Of course.
having me on.
Well, I think most people live their life the hero of their own story, when in reality they should be living it as the narrator, or even the story writer of their story. Yes, you can be the hero, but life shouldn't be happening to you. You should be creating that narrative, and of course living and existing in it. But realize that there's so much influence you have on generating the next chapters that you really should be looking at as much as a storyteller as you would be a participant. So.
Yeah. That's a good framing. Yeah, I like that.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Where can people find you, and where can they find your work or work with you?
The best experience would be on Instagram, and that's just Andrew Shaw BSc. Same on other social media platforms. Yeah, that's it. So Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Amazing. Wonderful. Everybody, please check it out. Links are down in the description. So in the show notes, so please take a look. And this work that Andrew does is absolutely phenomenal. Adam, where can we find you?
Oh boy! Before I say that, I always, to see if his works bear any validity, or to see if he practices what he preaches, or even just to see if what he is advocating for will be healthy to you, I always look at his children first, always. And if a child can be comfortable in his father's presence like this, then that is the biggest testimony that what you are teaching is going to help everybody who listens, because you're teaching it to your children first. So for your child to be comfortable and playing with you and in the background, right? In the background, he hasn't jumped on the camera, but that itself is a loud testimony to the validity of what you're teaching. So I love this. Fantastic. Keep it up. For finding myself, I am Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. You can find me on adamlanesmith.com. I have my mentorship community there. If you have 6 months of questions you've saved up that you haven't asked other people or haven't had conversations, join in the attachment circle. I would love to help you in there and guide you through those conversations and your decisions. You can also find me on Instagram as @attachmentadam.
Amazing. And I'm on Instagram as @Andrey Korikov, and you can see the work we do with content creators and talent at veritascreative.media. If you're a content creator especially, check it out and let's see if we can help you. And in the meantime, everybody, please ask your questions to Andrew down in the comments below. We'd be curious to hear what limiting beliefs you may be struggling with, or what are some of your challenges that you're overcoming. What mountains are you climbing, both, alone or with somebody? At once you're climbing maybe multiple mountains, or you're taking them one mountain at a time. So let us know your thoughts, comment, like, share, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you on the next episode of I Wish You Knew. Thank you.